Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Crossroads Career Network webinar today. We are grateful you're here. I trust you all have your cup of coffee in hand and we can get started. My name is Harry Urschel, and on a volunteer basis, I lead Crossroads Career Network along with many others that contribute their time and energy to the program. And I'm grateful that we have many new people on each of these webinars, and I want to make sure that everyone is aware of all we offer through Crossroads so that you can take advantage of the resources available. I'll be giving an overview of what's freely available to you, and if you have heard much of this before, please bear with me and we'll get to our topics this morning shortly. Currently, the plan is to return to in-person meetings after the first of the year. Stay tuned in the coming months and we'll have updates as things progress. I am really looking forward to getting back in person and seeing people eyeball to eyeball instead of staring into a webcam here. I'm looking forward to our presentation topic today. I know Tom will be informative and helpful, and I hope you get some hope and encouragement for yourself in the pursuit of your next career too. We'll get to all that shortly, but first I also want to touch base on some things that are going on in our world today. Watching the news can certainly be discouraging, whether it's about COVID or wildfires or racial tensions and riots or a very divisive election. It can be unsettling for sure, and even more so if you're unemployed. All the more reason to look for something constant that you can count on. You know, the Bible tells us that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Other passages say, the Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. He's consistent throughout everything. And just this morning, I was reading from the book of Isaiah, where it said, "For I am God, there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, things not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will accomplish all my purpose." You know, regardless of what's happening in the world, we can rely on the word of God, whose wisdom will outlast all the turmoil. He knows your situation. While he doesn't promise to remove all your troubles, he does promise that if you seek him, he'll carry you through it. You know, cultural norms change from year to year and sometimes from day to day. It gives us a much greater sense of peace and security to be grounded on a rock you can trust rather than the shifting sand of our world. If the world feels like it's shifting under your feet these days, I'd encourage you to spend time seeking God in scripture and in prayer and come to understand how he sees the world and, as importantly, how he sees you. If you ever want to think through or talk about any of this further, please reach out to me or any of our Crossroads leaders anytime. We'd love to talk. Let me open us in a word of prayer, and then I'll give you an overview of what's available to you in Crossroads this month. Lord, we just pray that as the world seems chaotic at times, that we fix our focus on you. You are the rock that we can count on, that doesn't change, and that we can gain security through. We pray that you help us see ourselves through your eyes rather than the way the world distorts things. And Lord, we just pray that this morning is helpful and hopeful and a blessing to everybody that's on this, and it honors you. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Let me get some slides on the screen here, and we'll walk through some things you can take part in this month. Hope you can see that, but welcome. As I mentioned, that hopefully we can get to the in-person meetings before long and see real faces face to face, and that hopefully won't be before too long. Our agenda this morning, just so you know what to expect. As I mentioned, I'm giving an overview here of Crossroads, and then I'm glad to have Jane Schwartz join us. She's going to talk about Crossroads in her career and what she experienced, and Tom Colosimo, and he's going to talk about how to work successfully with recruiters and the new secret sauce. And then I'll wrap up shortly and we'll be done by 9 o'clock. It's kind of a moot point right now because we're combining all of our efforts online, but when we do meet in person, we actually have 3 Twin Cities locations that you can take advantage of Crossroads at. And so finding one that's closest to you and being able to meet there for these seminars and for classes and everything else we offer, which I'll describe here in a moment. But we're working out of Grace Church in Eden Prairie, out of Woodbury Lutheran Church, and North Heights Church in Arden Hills. And you can always find all the details and upcoming schedules on our website at mncrossroads.com. And if you haven't been there already, I really encourage you to explore that website. mncrossroads.com is everything that we offer through Crossroads. You can find schedules, events, resources. We have a job board there that companies that know what we do and want to help people that are in Crossroads, as well as for them to find great potential employees. They know that we have great people that participate here. And in order to be on our job board, we require that they include a contact name and contact information. So you have somebody to reach out to. I wish I could say that they always respond. They don't, but at least it's a step in the right direction and not having a black hole to apply to. So check that out and explore the other resources on the website as well. On a weekly basis, we have a number of ways you can plug in. One is every week we have our Networking with Grace group, which is focused networking for business professionals. Online right now, our group meetings are every Thursday morning beginning at 9 o'clock. And you do need to register in advance because since it's all being done with Zoom, they have some logistics to deal with there. So you wouldn't be able to sign up yet for this morning's session, but check out the website and you can sign up for next week, and you can participate in every week. We have Wes 1 and Wes 2, Wes Roper and Wes Tang that lead that, and they do a tremendous job of making sure that everybody gets something each week when they show up, whether it's new leads or contacts or ideas, but you definitely walk out of there with something every time you show up. So take advantage of that. I can't stress enough how helpful and impactful that's been for people. We have one-on-one coaching available. If you'd like to get a chance to talk to one of our volunteers to either have them look at your resume or prepare for an interview or do some mock interview practice, or just to talk through your situation or any questions you might have regarding your job search, you can sign up on the form on our website and somebody will follow up with you and schedule a time for either a Zoom meeting or a phone conversation. And you can get a chance to work one-on-one with somebody for a little bit. And you can take advantage of that anytime and as often as you'd like. So I encourage you to check that out. As many of you probably know by now, that this job search process is an emotional roller coaster, right? And it can vary from day to day or sometimes from hour to hour. And getting as much support in every way possible is a great thing. And so we do have a team of people that love to pray for you in your circumstances, and getting that prayer support, spiritual support that can be helpful in this is, I think, critically important. Take advantage of it. Find the page on our website, and encourage you to use that as well. The meat and potatoes, or bread and butter, or however you want to say it, the most in-depth and ongoing help you can get is our small group classes. Right now we're doing those by Zoom meetings online, and we have an 8-week class that covers every aspect of a job search and strategy for how you can best land your next job. And we start with attitude, getting in the right frame of mind, and how you present yourself from that perspective. We do some assessments so you can better articulate what makes you unique and what you bring to the marketplace. We certainly talk a lot about networking. If you haven't heard, that's pretty critical in a job search. We talk about targeting companies and resume best practices and interview skills and negotiating and selecting the right job, and so much more. And throughout all that, we also talk about what's God's perspective of your career. He cares more about you than just what you do on Sunday mornings. And so getting a perspective of how he wants to impact your life is, I think, incredibly helpful as well. And the job search strategies and the content we cover is pretty terrific. But I think equally important is that weekly light accountability, check in with others that are in the same boat, and getting some encouragement and some moral support and some fresh ideas to kind of put a new spring in your step for the next week, I think is incredibly important and helpful. And so I really encourage you to check it out. We have new classes starting every month, And in fact, we still have one starting this month, and Steve Woodley is leading that. And he's kind of doing a unique thing here is as we're getting closer to the holiday season, he's kind of doing a 4-week boot camp of this instead of the full 8 weeks. And so he's kind of compressing it into 4 sessions. And so check out the details on the website for our classes, and encourage you to sign up. This is really where you can get the most in-depth and intense help in your job search and keep things moving forward. Check it out. If you haven't seen it already or not participating, I certainly encourage you to check out our LinkedIn group. If you put in MN Crossroads Career Network in the search box, you'll find us. And we're actually approaching, I think, 1,900 people in there right now, most of which are alumni of our Crossroads program, are working at other companies and willing to be networking contacts for you. It's a great way to get, if you're involved in the group now, to find people that you could be good contacts for you. There's a number of things that are posted on there, upcoming events, information that people share with each other, job leads, and all kinds of great stuff there. But then it's a great way to give back after you land as well. A lot of times people ask me, say that this has been worthwhile for them. How can they give back? Well, stay in the group and be available for others to reach out to you when you land in a new job too. So check it out, MN Crossroads Career Network, and participate in that group as well. There's a number of other resources, and particularly Thrivent Corporation has been a tremendous help and resource for Crossroads over a long period of time now, for several years. And they have terrific resources and virtual events themselves, some that are directed specifically to job search as well. If you go to the job groups box on our homepage, you'll see them listed along with others that can be additional resources for you too. Encourage you to check that out. There's a lot available for you out there. Check out what resonates best with you. Take advantage of all you can to be more effective in your job search. I just want to acknowledge as well that there's not a lot that gets accomplished in Crossroads because of 1 or 2 people. There's an awful lot of people that participate. We've got actually 42 people that volunteer in one way or another. And I'm really grateful for each of them, and that among all the different things we're able to offer, it's because there's people that care about supporting others and being available and helping others out any way they can. And so I'm grateful for the team we have, and it's always growing as well. And if you don't have a church home or just want to check out someplace new, the churches that support Crossroads here in the Twin Cities are great places to start. Each of us are streaming online and have in-person services as well, so you can check them out either way. But the various websites are listed there, and you can take advantage of that. Let me stop the sharing of the screen here. One thing I wanted to make sure I mention is that because we're always asked, I will have a recording of this webinar, and it'll be posted at the bottom of our seminars page or our website before the end of the day today. So if you missed some parts or want to check out some more, feel free to check out the website anytime. And like I say, this will be posted as of the end of the day, as well as previous webinars we've had too. With that, I'm really glad to introduce Jane Schwartz. Jane has gone through her own job transition, taken advantage of what we offer through Crossroads, and since she landed a new role, she's been volunteering with us to help others as well. She experienced a lot through her own job search, and I'm really glad to have her share some of that today. And Jane, there you are. I'll let you have it.
Thanks, Harry. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. As Harry mentioned, my name is Jane Schwartz, and I currently work for Wells Fargo as the Vice President of Business Communications in the commercial banking, which is the B2B space in the risk programs, handling mostly internal communications. My background is sales, marketing, communications in the B2B and the B2B to C space. So that's kind of a little bit of my elevator pitch, I guess you'd say. So it's hard to believe, but it's already 2 years in November since I first crossed paths with Crossroads through Grace Church in Eden Prairie. In October of 2018, I was let go from my position as vice president of a small financial services company, about $50 million company. And I'd done everything exceptionally well. I had rebranded them, and the work was really, really good. We had 174% year-over-year growth. Unfortunately, that led them to the fact that they were growing so fast, they wanted a full service marketing company. And that meant I was out on the street. And, you know, I did the same thing every one of you probably have done. I cried, I was angry, I was ashamed for losing my job. Even though I had done great work, I'd lost my job. I felt like it was my fault. I'd been downsized before multiple times, and that's just a horrible feeling. So I have a lot of empathy to what some of you might just be feeling now or have gone through. I really felt cheated by those I worked for. I trusted them, I believed in them, I was part of the executive team, and now I didn't feel like I could really trust anyone. However, I'm a really strong individual. I've never gone more than 30 days without either an offer in hand or a job. So, you know, I wasn't really too concerned after I got through the emotional piece of it. 45 days later, no job offer in hand, no interviews, no prospects, a lot of computer generated rejections. Trust me, a lot of them. I was great at applying online. I came to Crossroads Transitioning with Grace one Thursday morning. I sat there with a heavy heart, and when it was my turn to introduce myself, all I could do was cry. And Wes Roper looked at me and he said, "It's okay." And both him and Wes Tang and Wes Roper are phenomenal individuals. And if you haven't been to a Thursday morning networking with Grace, you really need to go there. Those two men are what I would say in all caps, disciples of Christ. They told me it would be okay, and it was okay. And they made me feel welcome. It was okay to cry. And to this day, every one of those emotions is inside of me. I immediately had this connection with this group of individuals and this organization that is lifelong. And I have lifelong friends because of it. During my transition of a little over 9 months, and yes, for those of you just joining transition, it could be 9 months. For those of you who have been in it for 9 months or more, it is a journey. I struggled. I struggled financially, mentally, and spiritually. There are people to help you. When Harry just mentioned Thrivent, Skip Nelson, phenomenal individual. We won't have an in-person Christmas party this year. It's a great networking event, but they had a Christmas tree with gift cards on it for Target and for Holiday gas station, I think, or Super America, some gas cards. And I have not been a person who's ever accepted help. And I was driving 44 miles each way to Grace, and I was going to Grace 2 or 3 times a week. And so I went over to them and I asked if I could take a gas card. And they said, well, you know, it's the end of the night, take more than that. They gave me a couple gas cards. They gave me a couple Target gift cards. And I got my car and again, cried because I felt like I was weak for asking for that help. And yet I was so thankful to the Lord that he had given us these wonderful people that were willing to come into our lives and to help me out. And I used those gift cards for Christmas gifts. And that gas helped me to get to my networking events. Today we do it via Zoom. We do it virtually. So you get to save on that money a little bit. But on the other hand, we don't have that, you know, hand holding, and we don't have that face-to-face consoling, I guess, that happens in person. But we are here via Zoom. This organization, when Harry mentions one-on-one coaching, people are there. People are there to help you through that. If you've got a big interview coming up, don't be afraid to have a practice interview session because we all need them. But anyways, back to my journey. I was doing everything people tell you to do. I wasn't getting a job. I came in seconds a lot. Don't think that because you have an offer until you're in your job. I actually had an offer, handwritten, signed, and all of a sudden I heard crickets, nothing. And they went and hired somebody else. The guy who would be my boss, his best friend, became available, and they put that individual in that job, and I was out, and nobody told me. So it does happen. So I took the small group classes, the weekly small groups, the 8-week sessions. And if there's a 4-week boot camp, you know, take advantage of that. And I took it with multiple individuals because everyone has their own way to give you advice and their own way to help guide you. And I was in a small group with Harry, and almost everyone in that group had found a job. And I think there was 3 of us left. And I sat and I talked to Harry that night, and I went away in tears because I was really happy for all of them, but I was trying to figure out why not me. I was doing everything right. I was having 2 to 3 networkings 3 times a week. Sometimes I would have 5 networkings in a day. I was applying online. I was doing everything right. And why wasn't it me? And I realized after talking to Harry that I hadn't turned it over to Christ. I hadn't really accepted that Christ was putting me through this journey for a reason. And so I turned it over to Christ. And throughout my transition, my relationship with Christ and the Spirit grew to a totally new level. I believe I was put through this time to help me grow personally throughout my career, but also spiritually. One person in a small group that I was in said, I now go to church more often. Why did it take me this to finally do that? And there's a book, it's called Jesus Always. So it's not a book that I wrote, it's a book I bought. And it's basically a daily devotional. Now mine is completely falling apart because you read a page a day. And I tell you, one little page like this a day is all you have to read. And do it before you enter your phone. Shut your phone off, your alarm, and read that. And your day will start different. And it will really change the way that you live your life. And when I finally turned that transition over to Christ and the Spirit, I felt lighter. And I was networking with one guy, and he said, how you doing? And I said, I'm so excited because I'm going to get a job by the end of May. This was during the month of May. And I said, I'm going to get a job by the end of May, and I'm going to be working by the time my unemployment runs out. And he said, well, how many interviews are you in right now? And I said, absolutely none. And he said, how many prospects do you have? And I said, absolutely none. And he laughed at me and he said, good luck with that. And I said, I'm not worried. I'm going to do my work, and then Christ is going to help me do the rest. And exactly that's what happened. And maybe I'm an anomaly. I don't believe so. I believe he works through us the right time for a purpose. But in the last few things of May, things started happening. And on June 6th, I got a call from a recruiter at Wells Fargo who found me online. And we talked for a little bit. He said, I'm posting this job tomorrow. Apply for it. So I posted that next morning. On that Monday, I got a phone call from him. On Tuesday, I had my screening call. And after the screening call, he said, well, you're going to interview with the hiring manager next week. I interviewed with that hiring manager and got an offer the next day. I interviewed with one person at Wells Fargo and got a job. And that just doesn't happen, especially at a vice president level. But it did for me. And at that same time, I had an offer from CenturyLink. I was in the final interview stages at US Bank and UHG. So I do believe that nothing is impossible with Christ, and it's up to you to find your journey and to truly believe. And it can't be a superficial belief. It has to be really down there in the heart. There are individuals within this program that can help you find that. Natalie Ackerman was a big change in my life as well. She's an absolutely fantastic person. And we met at a Panera, and what turned into what was supposed to be a half-hour conversation about career turned into a lifelong friendship. And that's what happens here. So as we change, as we go through this, change is obviously inevitable. And one thing I was told during my transition is not only build your network, and don't look at your network as I'm with this person here today because they're going to help me find a job. They're going to get me my job. You need to look at networking as building relationships, building friendships, learning. Learn. You can learn so many from the others that are not only in this process, but in these companies. I met with CEOs, data analysts. I've met with people all over. So it's really, really important. So make sure that you use networking the right way. Wells Fargo, you've probably seen in the newspaper. They're in the newspaper almost every day. We are in the midst of mass layoffs. And that number is over 30,000 by the end of the year. And it'll be significantly more in 2021. And these mass layoffs are going right after vice presidents and mid-level management. And that's me. And my boss has assured me that I'm in a good place and that she's doing everything for me not to get displaced. My team has been broken up in the last week, and things are changing rapidly. And my position is changing and my role is changing. And throughout when I really look back through my last year and a half with Wells Fargo, my role has constantly been changing. So change is inevitable. We're all going to go through it. And it's what you do to tackle that. It's taking advantage of these resources. And they work. they work. I did a small group, and I believe all but 2 people found jobs by the end of the 8 weeks. And when I first looked at the group and met them, I thought, ooh, some of this is going to be tough. And we followed the process. We worked together. We prayed together, and it happened. And it will happen for you too. And I believe that. And, we have to do that. I made lifelong friends, people I truly love and care about. They helped me through my transition, as they themselves, in most cases, were suffering in pain. There were times when I had, I was really up because I was in the final interview stage or something, and they had just gotten a whole bunch of rejections, and yet they were trying to lift me up. And I'm so forever grateful for that. And it's a two-way street, so make sure you do that as well. Find those people that can be your rocks, your cheerleaders, and your support. They might have been a one-off meeting. It's amazing how that happens. But everyone will make an impact on you in some way or another. Don't look at networking as a chore, but as an opportunity. It's really important. Look at it growing your contacts. You never know where that relationship will lead. So I thank Harry and all the team that make themselves available and work so hard to ensure that you and I have the support that we need it when we need it. The Crossroads program's amazing, and it's made a huge impact on the journey in my life. And I thank all of those who are walking with me and have walked with me in the past and are still by my side as I go through my journey in life. And mainly I'm grateful for Christ being there as well. So best of luck to each and every one of you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to do a Zoom meeting with you or a quick phone call. I do work during the day, so we have to do kind of nights and weekends mostly, sometimes over lunch, but best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Really appreciate that. And I appreciate all you do with Crossroads since you've been serving after you've landed your job. I am also really glad, let me turn things on here for him, but I'm really glad to introduce Tom Colosimo. I've known Tom for a number of years now and greatly appreciate him. For many years, he led the job transition group at Woodbury Lutheran Church called Career Transition Connection. And then a year ago, about a year ago now, we transitioned that to a Crossroads site as well. Tom's career has prepared him well to know what he's talking about when it comes to career search. He has extensive experience as a recruiter, both in search firms as well as a corporate recruiter. He also led the career development program for the University of St. Thomas Graduate School. Currently, he's an independent career consultant. I know you'll get some great insight and help from his presentation, so I'll turn it over to him. Glad to have you join us, Tom.
Thank you very much, Terry, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm going to share my screen. Let's get this set up here. Okay. But again, I'm so happy to be with you folks today. As Terry said, have been involved with a lot of. I want to make sure this is coming through. There we go. And I want to make sure I'm getting all this stuff before we get too deep into the thing here. But anyway, as Harry says, I've been a kind of a master, jack of all trades and a master of nobody over the years. I've been in 3 or 4 different careers myself. Started out being an accountant way back in the early days of my life for 20 plus years. I'm actually a degreed accountant in finance from good old University of St. Thomas. And I worked in those areas for many years until 2001, and then got into recruiting for 7 years, a variety of third-party recruiting roles, and then for corporate recruiting roles. And one of my corporate recruiting roles was at Wells Fargo, of all things. So Wells Fargo was part of my pathway as well. And then getting involved with Woodbury Lutheran Church and career coaching through the University of St. Thomas, and doing independent coaching these days and speaking around the area and doing many webinars as well. So happy to be with you all here today, folks. And feel free that we can do the chats as you'd like. From that standpoint, if anybody has questions through this, feel free to speak up. And Terry's going to be monitoring that in the back, I believe, as we go through this process. So again, today we're going to be talking about working with recruiters successfully, and we're going to try to include some of the components that deal with the COVID, what's changed since February, and how that affects working with recruiters and interviews in general for what it was before that time frame. So the agenda today, besides anything that you would like to talk about, will be these following items here. What are the issues candidates have with recruiters, the types of recruiters that are out there, the types of jobs, how to prepare for battle, That's kind of how you kind of call it there. What's different since the COVID thing has taken effect at this point in time with all the virtual applications? The post-meeting, after you have your face-to-face or virtual applications, and then the offer, not so fast. Maybe to think about that offer before you take it. And then the acceptance with a smile of confidence. And if that's the case, then staying in touch. And how do you do that after all of this is done, after all the dust is settled and you have found that job? It's a process. And a lot of people have a lot of different feelings about that. And of course, as I say, if you have any things you would like to add or speak up at any time that we are not covering here, feel free to speak up and we'll get to that. I'm here I'd like to treat this one as a round table, very open discussion versus me being a talking head, so to speak. So as we continue on here, some people would rather go to the dentist and have a root canal or set their hair on fire than to deal with recruiters. A lot of people have had bad situations where they've gotten into a lying recruiter. Jane mentioned something like, what happened there with her offer that was pulled back without even knowing about it. Things like this do happen. But on the other side of the coin, there's a lot of good things about working with recruiters. But the fear, the unknown, how to communicate with recruiters, frustration that we have with them, lack of enthusiasm from a recruiter maybe can be common that way. Lack of trust, case in point with Jane's situation. Understanding the process, miscommunications, and follow-up. How all these things are so critical to working with recruiters, if it's corporate recruiters or third-party recruiters. And if we have any questions at all about this, and as you go through this, feel free to add value, add comments, anything along that line. So then, as I said, Harry will be monitoring the chat. So as we move forward, the positives of working with recruiters, and primarily third-party recruiters, is that they have connections with many companies. They are gateways to jobs, and they help you prepare for the interviews in many cases. They want to be a win situation as well. So they want to prepare you for the interviews so that you will have a good interview with that particular company. And developing long-term partnerships is a key part of this too. I've gotten to know recruiters through the years that I've been friends with for 20 years, 25 years from my accounting days. And it's good to stay in touch with them. They can also provide coaching situations themselves. They want you to do well. If you're going on an interview for a third-party recruiter into one of their clients, they want you to be on your game. So they will help you with that coaching situation. And they'll be a proponent for you as well as help with negotiations when the offer does come through. So there's a lot of positives when you're working with third-party recruiters. Maybe I can post this question out there. How many of you have worked with recruiters in the third-party world? I don't know if we can put hands up somehow there, Harry, or not, but I'd like to see, I know we have like 40 people on here, but if people have engaging situations with recruiters in the third-party world? If not, that's okay. I don't know if I'd like to see that.
We've got a few people saying they certainly have.
Awesome, thank you. So some of this might be redundant, maybe you've heard it before, but I hope that I can add some viewpoints from being in the recruiter chair over the years, and also my personal experiences going way back in time to my accounting days, where I worked with many recruiters through my transitioning. And so we'll move forward with that. So we're going to cover two types of recruiters. We have the corporate recruiter and third-party staffing agency recruiters. I'm sure most of you understand what this is about. Corporate recruiters are employed by the company. They're paid a flat salary, and they source roles for various internal company managers. So they're working for a lot of managers inside of their operation, depending on the size of the company. Some like Wells Fargo, if we say that, or US Bank or Target, they have teams of recruiters. The recruiters are split up by different focuses or areas within the operation. Smaller companies might have the human resource person being the recruiter. They might have a person who changes hats. They go from doing benefits to doing recruiting and placing people in jobs. So it just depends on the size of the company, how elaborate these setups can be. They apply, for corporate recruiters, you apply to specific jobs at specific companies, and you upload your resume and cover letter specific to the job. The resume goes through an applicant tracking system, an ATS. What is that? This is something that a lot of people have gotten to know dearly, because when it goes through the upload of your resume into the corporate structure, corporate system, it either gives you that quick reply saying, thank you for applying, we'll let you know, or sorry, no go. So you just never know what you're going to get. A little detail about the ATS or applicant tracking system. It's basically an electronic gatekeeper to screen out or accept resumes using keywords. The average applicant per job is around 250. Now, this is pre-COVID, so it might be different now. But the average screening applicants ask for an initial phone screen out of that could be as low as 6. So you have quite the odds to overcome there, going from a volume of people coming into a job and getting down to the people that they want to talk to. And again, having the keywords, having the right format, getting it uploaded cleanly and accurately is key to have being caught for the right reasons and having a good response. Again, the tracking system, ATS for short, is a type of software used by recruiters and employers during the hiring process to collect, sort, scan, or the job applications they receive for the open positions. The applicant tracking system was initially created for large corporations, but now it's being used by lots of companies. It's easier for Sally, the recruiter, to have it go through a main system like that and screen it down than to have Sally going through hundreds and hundreds of resumes manually on her desk, which was the case before this. The bad thing is that it makes it kind of impersonal. It's one of those things where it goes through the system, and you, as the client, as the candidate trying to apply, may feel like you're being left out in the cold. You may feel it's very impersonal. You're not hearing feedback, and all of a sudden something pops, and you get a call or a virtual connection and say, "Hey, we want to do an interview with you." So it's really used a lot in companies more and more all the time to make it easier for them to coordinate it better, but it can also be a little bit more impersonal in feeling. So again, carrying on in the process, you're applying for the jobs, moving on, and then you wait for the response. If it's positive, the process continues, obviously. Usually starts with a phone screen interview. If they like what they hear, it proceeds to face-to-face interviews. Now, during the life of COVID now, everything is pretty much virtually. Zoom, Microsoft Teams, there's about, how many different types of platforms now that have developed over the last 9 months that have been used by companies in every aspect of this. So the thing here is you've got to be prepared. In whatever mode is you're using it face-to-face or using it virtual, you've got to be ready for it in many different ways, as we'll talk about here, okay? And again, the tracking system gets back to the keywords. We're thinking about marketing here. When you think about yourself and you're marketing your value to the application system, to the company that you're trying to get into, the keywords are so important. When I keep saying keywords, soft skills, hard skills, it gets back to the job description. Knowing that job description, supplanting the words that are used in that job description for requirements within your resume to get the attention and get through all these gates to get to the recruiter. The analogy I use is, people that want to buy a sports car usually aren't people that have 5 kids. So when people are marketing cars or transportation, they're not marketing sports cars to families. They're marketing to either retired people who are empty nesters, or they might be marketing to young people that just have no kids, whatever. Single person couples with no kids are not going to be shopping for a minivan unless they're in certain situations where they want a minivan. So this, likewise, the analogy applies to how we apply for jobs. What they're looking for, what I have to offer, and connecting the dots. So important from that standpoint. So the process continues, and one other thing I'd like to talk about here, there's one item out there called Job Scan. There are many things like this that are coming up where you can plug in your resume as well as the job description, and it'll do an interpolation to see how closely your resume matches to that job description. I don't know, have any of you used something like this to kind of test the water, so to speak, with your resume before sending it through? If you have, yeah, great, awesome. And hopefully you've had some good responses on that it has helped you. Usually you have 4 or 5 freebies to go through ahead of time to play with that and see how close you can get to, well, 90% if you're lucky. But it's a good way to kind of tighten up your resume as much as possible. It doesn't guarantee, but it tightens it up to be as closely matched to what they're looking for with the job description. And this is just one of many that you can try out. The keywords focus on alignment to the job needs that you can put together. And you can play with that and kind of massage your resume to get it tighter and tighter to the needs. So this is one way to kind of get your game on more so with the resume. Again, does your resume talk to the needs that they have to match your walk that you have for this as well? Now we're going to talk about the third-party staffing agency recruiters. These are the little bit more dynamic people. They have a lot of things going on. That my picture is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but they got phones. They're working with many different clients. They've got meetings going on. They're trying to satisfy everybody. I worked at length in a third-party firm. At the time, it was called Proce Finance and Accounting. They worked for NICOR Group for a while too. But basically, you're handling the full desk thing. You're taking calls. You're developing sales and relationships with companies as a recruiter in this area, and you're also trying to keep your candidates, happy and connected. That can be really challenging as well. But the thing is that they're paid on performance. Where back in the corporate recruiters, they're paid on a flat fee on a salary. So yes, they might get a bonus here and there, but it's not like a commission plus base. This area is base plus commission, usually a lower base. Sometimes you don't even have a base, but you're paid on the placement and how long the placement lasts. Usually it might be a guarantee of 90 days or something like that before you get the full 30%, 35% commission that can come through for the firm. And it's highly competitive. As you can imagine, as you know, many of you know, there's a lot of recruiters out there that do this kind of stuff. Some are small, some are large, like Randstad and Robert Half. Others you may never have heard of them. A lot of times people are getting connections or contacts by recruiters around the country. We're getting contracts from companies here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, but they're working on them from New York City or Miami or some ranch out in Wyoming. It doesn't matter where they're at, but they're getting these contracts and they're placing people from wherever they can. And with the virtual, why not? You can do it from your home, your backyard, whatever, if you're good at this. So again, it's highly competitive because everybody wants to get a share of the pie. They want to make that fee happen and get their candidates in there. Because once they place a candidate in a company and they do it successfully, the chance of redundant and recurring opportunities will come up more and more with that company. So it's about building relationships from their standpoint and developing pathways into these companies so they have repeat business. And then, so they really are working for the clients. I know this is hard for us, for people who are candidates thinking, why don't they talk to me? It's all about me. Yes, it is about you when you're trying to find a job. But the key thing is that they have to make money and they want to keep the candidates happy, but they're paid by the company. So now there are two types of contingency versus retained type of third-party recruiters as well. Contingency, or candidate pays fee upfront for a recruiter to find the job. Now these are less popular and they're less used. They're more at the high end. Sometimes if somebody wants to do a relocation from one area to another, they might be at a C level or a D level, director level. Those types of people might put somebody in place to do this. They might pay them $5,000, $10,000. I'm not even sure what the going rate is on this right now to help find a job for them. It's more of a passive type thing, but they're always out there sourcing and searching. The retained type of recruiters is more the thing that we're used to working with here, where the fee is paid by the company, as I alluded to before. And those fees can range from anywhere from 20 to 40% sometimes that they are paid at placement. So these retained recruiters are the types of people that we really deal mostly from the standpoints of Robert Half, Randstad, Express Pros, you name it. There's so many out there experienced people like that. So again, when you're calling into a third-party staffing agency, you're kind of coming at them versus in a corporate situation, corporate recruiters, they're coming at you because they found you either through your application, LinkedIn, things like that. So they're approaching you more so. When it comes to third party, you're coming at them to find out what they have or reply to a posting they may have on a particular board. So you call into the agency and explain what you want. You kind of start the process. It's very simple. You'll be assigned to one of the recruiters on their team. You set up an appointment to either chat on phone or in better days, meet in person. Mostly virtually these days will be the key. But again, the key thing here I want to stress is to know your focus. What types of jobs are you looking for? Because so many times we blame the recruiters for not getting my story straight. Okay, what I want, my pay, things like that. Well, it's a two-way street, and you're developing a partnership with these recruiters. They're not the end all. They're just one portion of your toolbox when you're searching. Networking is still king. The third-party recruiters that are working on the sidelines are just a small portion of your toolbox when you're looking, because they're working with many clients, they're working with many candidates, and you're not the total focus for them. But again, when you set up this appointment and you want to talk about what you're looking for, if it's temporary, temp to hire, which is almost as good as being direct hire, and permanent direct hire. So these dynamics here are different in how they're approached. So you've got to make sure that you're telling your story with what you want up front. Obviously, there's different types of recruiters out there that many of you probably know already that focus in these different areas and many more areas. So you want to make sure you're connecting with those recruiters that work in the niche that you want to be in. And that can be found by researching, can be found by talking to people who have used third-party recruiters, so networking with people who have used third parties and the types of feedback they can give you. If somebody works with a great recruiter, a third-party recruiter, that's what you want to hear about. Those are the types of people that you want to find out, and take it from there. So again, I can't stress this enough to know your focus and be clear about what you want up front, so there's no miscommunications. You have to be prepared possibly to take assessments so they know your skill level. If you're in accounting and finance, they have assessments for that. If you're in marketing, they might have assessments for that. They want to kind of see where you're at so that they can prove that you've got what you say. They don't want to be burned. They don't want to place you in a job and have you fail because you said you could do all these great things and you get in there and you're over your head. They may or may not have a job that matches you at that point when you walk in or talk to them on the phone. It might be just getting to know them, setting the stage for when something pops up. If not, if they have nothing at the point in time, you stay in touch. You check back as often as specified by the firm. So that's something, again, that you have to ask. You can't sit there and go like, well, they never called me back. I talked to them 6 months ago. I know what the problem is. That's not going to work. You've got to take the bull by the horns. You've got to stay in touch and talk to them saying, how often should I check in? Normally, lower level jobs, clerical jobs, in my case, like accounting, accounts payable jobs, accounts receivable jobs, you check in more often. You check in every week to 10 days. The ones that are C-level jobs, managerial jobs, you check in less often because they're slower moving. If you want to keep active with what's going on, you want to keep your name at the top of the list when they're doing their internal searches for candidates. You want to come across very professional, checking in whatever mode that you have set up up front when you initially had your introduction meeting, and stay in touch that way. CFOs, director level positions, you might check in once a month at that. It might be that we'll let you know. They might call you, and you just have to kind of hang back in the weeds and keep doing other things. So don't put all your eggs in their basket is what I'm trying to say here. You've got to be active with them, professional, clear and focused when you're meeting with them, but don't just sit by the phone or by the computer waiting for them to call you because it's going to be a long day that way. Okay. And going on, if they do have a job, yay, that's all good. They will prep you about that job with details and all the details about that activity. Oops, moving my stuff around here a little bit. There we go. They'll have a corporate recruiter. They'll put you in touch with the corporate recruiter. They'll lay out the plan of the interview. If it's going to be on the phone, virtual now, some day you'll be back to face-to-face. But this is where the positivity comes through with working with a third-party recruiter because they know their clients, they know the process, they give you the tips. A good recruiter will coach you and give you the tips of what the person is going to be like, what they're going to be looking for. So it's just golden that way once things start happening. If it's a temporary job, things will be much quicker. It might be just one interview, and they may even have you start the next day. So if it's data entry or call center or customer service or whatever, those jobs might be say plug and play. We need somebody here on Monday. Here's the rate. Do you want it or not? It just goes that quickly. Sometimes they'll have to do background checks, like Wells Fargo does a background check for drugs, things like that, just to make sure everything's cool before you start. So that could be the only delay, is doing the background checks. Again, if it's a permanent job or temp to hire job, the hiring process will be slower and more deliberate, obviously. They're making a bigger commitment. There's a bigger fee going into this play. So similar to a corporate recruiting situation, these will take longer. When you're dealing with corporate recruiters, it takes long. The same thing will be the case here. But prepare accordingly for the interview process. So this is how you would view this temp to hire and permanent. Again, temporary, contract, whatever you want to term it, those generally move quicker. Again, if there's any questions out there, just let me know. I'm rolling right along here. So, okay, how to prepare for the interview. Obviously, with any interview, with any recruiter, you've got to do your research. Know the job description inside and out. And we're talking here more so with the corporate recruiter application. The third-party recruiters will make sure you do this. They'll be pressing you to do this. But if you've got your own, you're managing your own job search and you're going into a corporate recruiting interview, this is the deal. You have to know what the company does. Why do they want to, why do you want to work there? That's got to be one of the questions. Why do you want to work at our company? What do you know about our company? These are things that you're going to want to know ahead of time so that you go in there fully engaged, fully all in. Obviously, this is the old adage that goes back my whole 40 years of working, know your resume and be able to walk through it. I remember hearing this story, my goodness, back in the 80s. Walk me through your resume. Well, that's okay. That's kind of a typical thing. But again, think of this term off to the side here, star stories. Recruiters all over the country know what this means. And many of you probably do too, but I'll say what it is. It's statement, task, action, result. When you're telling your story, make sure you're setting the table, you're setting the scene. It's almost like painting the scene or for a play or whatever like that. The situation that you want to focus on, that you were involved with, the activities you did, and the results, the quantifiable results of either increasing sales, reducing costs, better process improvement, things like that that can be a derivative from the activities that you were involved with, that can be quantifiable. Recruiters and hiring managers want to hear those stories because they need help. They're going to pay you $70,000, $80,000, whatever, $150,000 to help. But they want to trust in you just like you want to trust in them to make sure that everything adds up before they pull the trigger. Because when you're going into a hiring situation, the manager wants to make sure he's making a great hire, because if not, he's going to look like not so good in the eyes of his coworkers and his managers at that location. So again, all these things are very important. And it's so easy to do that through networking, through online resources. I know when I was a young man, we didn't have all this Google stuff and the internet stuff where you could just find this thing at your fingertips. I had to go down to the James J. Hill Library and start digging into vast of papers and different types of articles on companies to do that. Now it's so much easier. So there's no excuse not to know and research companies and know their products and services before you go into the interview. Check out the LinkedIn profiles of those that you'll be meeting with. This comes together where you set up with your corporate recruiters as well as the third-party recruiters. The third-party recruiters are going to tell you who you're going to be meeting with at their client site. So you can check them out online. Those people, get to know them a little bit online. And then do informational interviews, networking with people who have worked or work there now at the company, so you'll know more about the company. So when you go in for your interview with the recruiters, you're going to be better prepared. You're going to know what the hot buttons are that they're looking for. And then, of course, practice interviewing ahead of time, mock interviews. I do mock interviews with many people. I know Harry does. I know that Grace Church, the Crossroads, they have mock interviews going on constantly, and a great connection there to help people that way. So practice, practice, practice. It's like anything. The more you do it, the better you are at it. So these, again, are key elements. Now, the day of the interview. Okay, here we go. It gets a little different now with COVID. Okay, but the same theme. Okay, so dress for success. Work conservative in style when you're going in to meet with the recruiters. Even the third-party recruiters, when you're going for initial meetings with them or virtually chatting with them, dress more on the conservative side, but it's your brand that will come across. So you want to make sure that it's coming across in a proper professional way. Now, obviously, with virtual interviewing, the same rules will apply. It's just that you, on top, you can wear with good professional look. On the bottom, you could wear pajamas. Nobody cares. So it's kind of reminds me of the old days years ago about Dilbert. I don't know if you remember Dilbert, the cartoon, the character. But he'd always be kind of saying, back, this is 20 years ago, they're talking about working from home and the IT people kind of, getting out of bed and rolling in front of a online conference or whatever like that. So the main thing is you got to look good, project energy. Sometimes standing up and doing an interview will bring more energy. Some people have riser desks that go up and down so you can stand up or find a high counter in your space where you can project and maybe even have Post-it notes on the wall in front of you. So as you're trying to remember what you want to say, you have notes on the wall that you can glance up at, almost like a monitor, kind of showing you things ahead of time. So you get a teleprompter or whatever. so that you can make sure that you're not missing anything. Bring copies of your resume with you when you have a face-to-face, just in case they don't have any. That happens many times in the face-to-face. If it's a virtual interview, obviously, you may ask if they need electronic copies of the resume. So everything is just a little bit more digitized, if you want to put it that way. Bring a portfolio notebook pad with you with questions and notes that you can take in an interview if you have a face-to-face. If it's virtual, have the notepad in front of you. It's so much easier to do these from home or virtually now when you do an interview. I always tell people, set up whatever you've got in front of you. Have a glass of water so you don't have dry mouth and things like that. You need to have some fluids to keep drinking. Have the resume in front of you. Have the job description in front of you. And have a notepad. And that notepad is as important as anything, because on there, you want to have any notes that for you to remember that you want to bring out in the discussion. Things that you've achieved, stories that you want to tell. Things like that. Have that already prescribed and written out on the notepad. Or questions that you have of them. Make sure you've got those notes. There's a cheat sheet almost to say that these are questions, business questions that you have of them, so you don't miss that. So those are things that you would have on that sheet of paper or portfolio in front of you. And obviously you take notes. And you always ask politely, may I take notes in the interview? And they'll usually say, no problem at all. So that's kind of how you would lay it up so that you come across well that way. And it just helps you be ready, prepared, and more energized, because obviously when you're doing a virtual type of meeting like this, a virtual interview, you have your face, your brand, everything is coming through from this standpoint. Use hand gestures. I'm Italian, so I use hand gestures often enough, but use hand gestures to make your point, but don't go crazy. Okay, don't make it seem like you're on a steroids or something like that. But make sure your lighting is good. This is the new thing now. You got to almost have like a studio feel to it. So make sure your lighting is good. That it's not you're not setting up in front of a window behind you, which has a bright light coming in and makes you look like a ghost silhouette. You don't want that to happen. So you want to get in a space just like anytime, quiet, lit well, have your setup, no noise. Try to keep things as low as possible. If there's dogs barking or if kids running around, try to find a space that works better so you don't have the interruptions. People are more open to things like this happening because it's become almost a joke on how things are happening now since COVID. Things, interruptions, kids running around. It's kind of assumed that with homeschooling and things like that, that may happen. So they're not so much hung up on it anymore. But again, as the picture describes here, smile, bring on your best game, and interact. And that'll make you a champion and make you a lasting memory in a good way. Obviously, if you're having a meeting and they bring your list of references with you, just in case they ask for those. If you're doing the virtual, well, then there's LinkedIn recommendations, things like that can supplement for the references face-to-face. Just like in any time, you're meeting face-to-face, show up 15 minutes beforehand, not too early, not too, don't run in the door and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm late, unless there's a snowstorm or something that causes it. But try to get there about 15 minutes late. So you just arrive in time so that you have a deep breath, you're relaxing, whatever it takes for you to get in that space that you are your best person, your best presentation. Some people do stretching exercises in the morning, have a good breakfast, but don't overeat. Some people do yoga, breathing exercises. There's a lot of things that put you in the frame of mind that relaxes you and keeps you confident. That's going to be key. Obviously, with technology, and I've experienced this a lot myself, make sure your technology works. Log on at least 10 minutes before interview time so you've got your camera set up, everything's working, your audio video is working properly. That's so important. These other items I've already brought up, at least from that standpoint. And depending on the interview time, again, be sure to have something to eat before the meeting, but do not overeat. People, if it's a early afternoon, late afternoon, or early morning type of thing, make sure you have enough that you have energy to go on to make this happen in a good way. Again, when meeting with the recruiter or hiring manager, have a firm handshake when we're doing the face-to-face. Look them in the eye, smile. Smile, smile, smile. Don't be giddy, but smile and be energized. If you're doing, in the sitting area, sit with a good posture, don't slouch. Just like we're doing here virtually in the COVID style, we have to sit up in our chairs. We have to look at the camera. I know sometimes I look at the picture versus the camera, so I have to remember to keep looking there, looking at you all in the eyes, so to speak, as you look at them in the eyes as well. but smile and engage with energy. This is the key thing. Wow. So just the handshake, maybe we won't be doing handshakes after COVID. I don't know. We might just be doing elbow bumps or something, but whatever. It's just how we approach it, keeping it the personable way. When I was at the University of St. Thomas coaching many MBAs over the years, I was there for over 8 years. A lot of times I would bring panels, the recruiter panels, to engage with the MBAs. I'd be facilitating these events or hiring managers. And at the end, after all talk about what the skills are they want, the hard skills and this and that, I'd say, what is the key thing that you want? What is the key thing that you look for? And they'd all look at each other going, likability, smile. Are you coachable? Are you somebody who can demonstrate that you've learned things in the past that you may not have learned, but you know you can learn it and you have a positive attitude about learning something new? I've talked to so many hiring managers just in IT and technology. What if they don't have Java, but they've got Python, they got all these other things that are full stack developer, blah, blah, blah. But they demonstrate that they can learn those things through a positive logistical way of doing it. And they have a good personality to go with it. They'll say, we're going to give them a shot. That will put them over the top many times. They see that the person has engaging qualities. They can see that person working on the teams and their environment and the culture. They know the culture. They know their stuff. They just don't know that one particular language. Well, that can be overcome. And that's what they look for. And I've talked to, like I said, recruiters. I worked with a lot of IT people at a local school here too, through a local school in IT. And it's definitely the key to be engaging, soft skills, your personality, your DNA, all that comes across. And like I said, if there's anyone that puts their hands up, just let Harry know. I'll put the brakes on. I'm just going to get rolling here. Again, if you're setting up, in the situation like we are now, look the manager or the hiring recruiter in the eye and listen. Listen to what they say. Be interested in them as well as interesting when you do talk. Be genuine and attentive on what you hear. Know your resume and the achievements you have and relate them to this job. That's another key thing. When you line up your stories, your star stories, make sure they're not stories that are off the wall that don't pertain to the needs of this job. That's why you have to know that job description so much. You have to be knowing what their requirements are, knowing what their needs are. You got to help them. You're trying to be there to help them. So make sure your stories, your star stories or whatever, align, and in your mind, you can see how they come together. And because you've done all your research, because you've done your networking ahead of time and you talk to people who worked at that company, you know their problems, you know what keeps them up at night, things of that nature, you will help save them and help them move along the pathway. You will be a superstar to them. So again, how you relate to this job and the focus, your focus to the job is going to be key. Have good strategic business questions at the end of the interview. This is what I get back to earlier. I said, if you got have a portfolio, if you go face to face or you have it from home, have those good business questions already documented on the sheet of paper so that you have something to engage with. Some questions might be, where do you see this job progressing within the corporation as a positive growth pathway? If in 6 months, what would success look like in this position? If I was to be successful, what would that initially look like in 6 months? Hopefully the recruiters or the hiring manager, probably more so, will have answers to that and can kind of give you some framework to work from that way. If they don't, it could lead to some iffiness and some wishy-washy and fuzziness that may cause you to put up a red flag and say, because they really don't know what this position's about. It sounds like they don't have a game plan. And I'm going to be asked to put this game plan together. That's okay if you know that up front. But if you go into it blindly and they have nothing, they don't even have a PC set up for you and say, here's your PC, go to it. And you're going like, what? Those things happen. So be cautious, be aware, get those questions answered. Obviously, the last question you want to ask is, what is the next step? When you're meeting with recruiters, corporate recruiters, and recruiters through third-party recruiters, that's what the next step is going to be. Do you have, how many more people are going to be engaging in interviews? When are you going to make a decision? Why we ask these questions? Well, it's pretty obvious. So that if you are waiting around wondering what the next step is going to be, I've had clients of my own that come home and come back to the home fort, so to speak, and they call me, the interview went well, everything went great connections. I said, well, what's the next step? Oh, gee, I didn't ask that. What do you think, Tom? What should I do? I was like, I don't know. I'm just a career coach. I'm not working for that company. So those are questions you want to leave answered with. If it's going to be by November 1st, they're going to make a decision. Or if it's going to be, they got 3 more people to interview, they're going to wrap up the interviews in a week. So you know when you can check back in. You know when you can come back to them and say, I'm still very interested in this position. I'm just wondering where things are at. You mentioned that it might be done by November 1st, and it's November 1st. You want to find out what's going on. So ask good strategic questions at the end of the interview. Do not ask questions of desperation. Nobody wants to hear desperation when you're going through the interview with any recruiter. When I was a recruiter, third-party recruiter, and people would call me every day, and these are mid to upper level type jobs, I would sit there, John, don't call me every day. Just call me every 2 weeks, okay? I'll get a hold of you if I need you. It becomes very annoying with third-party recruiters, especially because they're working with so many different dynamics of so many different companies that they're working with and so many openings, that if you have a candidate that's constantly barraging them, they will put notes in the system, believe it or not. And if it gets that bad that you just send them over the top, they'll put DNP in their systems, do not place. And that, in the case of Proce, at that time, we had like 8 offices, can be seen around the Twin Cities area. That person is a problem. So treat your recruiters as a business partner professionally. I want to make sure I get that point across. They're not the end all. You don't put all the eggs in the baskets of third-party recruiters, but they're a partner in this activity. Corporate recruiters are a little different because you're dealing with them directly on an opening that you're working engaging with. Okay. And then the closing, like I said earlier, make sure that you get good questions at the end. Be gracious, move on, show energy, have a nice closing on your virtual with a smile and confirm confirmation. Enjoy meeting with them. Possibly ask if you can connect on LinkedIn. That's a good thing, tag on as well. It's good to connect with LinkedIn and stay in touch. Most recruiters are very open to that these days. When I know I started out back in 2002, 2003, and LinkedIn was not even there until mid 2005 or so. Recruiters are hesitant about connecting. They don't want to show their cards. They don't want to, connect with everybody. They want just to stay more in their silos. Now it's pretty open. If you're a good person, professional, they want to connect with you. They really do. So post-interview. Okay, after all the dust is settled, you've gone through all this, you've done a great job of closing the interview process and things like that. What do? Well, I say send a thank you card, an old-fashioned 1980 thank you card, okay? Send thank you notes to all the people you've interviewed within 24 hours, a simple thank you. Follow up at the point of time agreed to from the end of the interview, and don't be a pest, and request to connect on LinkedIn, as I said earlier. So sending a basic thank you card, saying thank you for your time, I enjoyed it, it was informative, I feel very interested in the position, look forward to hearing from you. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be, book. Don't get a big flowery thank you card. Simple black and white thank you cards, business thank you cards. It's a nice touch, even in 2020, it's a nice touch. Because when I get them, I get jazzed up. And I know that recruiters like getting into it. I'm not saying it's going to push you over the top. When you're competing, it's still up to what you got. But it's just a nice professional way to tie off. And it's after another interview, you follow the same interviewing process. Okay? So again, as we go through temporary contract jobs, you treat the interview process like a permanent job. Note that you may be hired on the spot. I want to go back to this just to go over this one more time. Less chance of additional interviews. Temp jobs can go for long periods of time or can be perm in some cases too, and can actually go permanent. So don't always think that contract temp jobs are not the way to go. One thing is that if they have an opening that you can jump into, and let's say you've been looking for a while, it gets your resume active, gets you back in the groove. It shows that the energy that comes with working on a job, I don't care if it's temp or contract, at least you're back in there and working and showing activity on your resume. So that is the key thing there too. So temp jobs can be cool. Sometimes it could be a week long, sometimes 3 months, but if you do a good job and they see you in action, and there's possibilities there, big companies especially, they might say, hey, Tom, would you like to stay on a little longer? Or, we've got this additional project, would you like to stay for that? I've seen great things happen from temp and contract jobs. personally and from people I put in those places. So always keep them as an alternative out there. I know we all want to have the permanent job, making the big money and have all those great benefits and things like that go with that. But if it takes us a year or two of doing that, sometimes that resume gets stale. You lose heart. We talked about that earlier. It can be a real stressful situation, being out of work, feeling the loneliness, depression, things like that. If you can take a temp job to plug in, and maybe you may not be making the money that you want initially, but if you set the tone and set it right, you could be making okay money, rate of pay. And the thing is that you're engaging with other people in company applications. That in itself causes a person to feel energized when you're working with people, okay? And so I'm all for temp contract jobs as an alternative way to keep the ball rolling. Let's say you receive the offer, okay? Are you comfortable with that offer? If you have an issue with it, counter offer. At least one counter offer is acceptable these days. I've talked to many recruiters, and maybe there's ways to strategize, to negotiate, to take this offer to another level if it's not really what you want, or if it doesn't have the monetary value that you want. So a lot of times, signing bonuses are very common. I know when I was at the University of St. Thomas, we had many of our MBAs, they got a signing bonus up front, $5,000, $10,000 just to make a difference in that first year anyway. Then the rest of it, they'd have to earn the following year, of course. Usually companies might throw another week of vacation on there, PTO time, things like that. That's pretty easy for them to do. Monetary review in a time period. Sometimes you might set up like in a 6-month period. Could we have a monetary review at that point in time based on my achievements to see if we could accelerate some type of salary increase? Now, these things get a little tricky because you want to make sure you get that in writing. I've heard people say verbally they did that, but it didn't happen. So you want to see how this can be negotiated and with a little more firm deadline to it, a little more firm criteria to it so that it isn't blown off or overlooked. If it's not going to work out, don't hesitate to graciously decline with professionalism. It's just say, I thought about my situation. I thought, don't talk so much about the money, but maybe there's just a few little red flags. And sometimes they'll come back after that declining and they'll say, well, what if we did this and this and this? What if we gave you that money? You put them in the spot, you put them in pressure spot. And that might make them think a little bit more. They really think, gosh, we'd really like to have her come on board here. Maybe we got to rethink this. Well, all I'm saying is be cautious on how they rethink it and they come back to you. If it feels a little bit pushy, be careful, because you might get into the job and you're going like, well, maybe this isn't the right place to be. They really didn't want me, or maybe you didn't want it in the beginning. What was the reason you didn't want it? Well, okay. You've got to think about that as you're going through that acceptance stage. So this can be a little bit more negotiations, a little more touch points, a little more taking things to heart, talking to people about the situation. Of course, your spouse or significant other would be a big part of this, but critical thinking friends of yours, talk these through sometimes just to see what's going on. Make sure that you're true to yourself. That's the key thing. If it's what you want, everything's cool, accept it. Shout, enjoy. It's great. It's great. You're the winner. It's a winning situation. Now, what do you do after you accept? Don't forget to reach back to all those people you connected with for networking. Let them know the good news and thank them once more. This is the thing. I mean, you talk to a lot of people. Sometimes people feel like, wow, I never heard a word from them, he or she, after we talked, 6 months ago. Then all of a sudden, it just feels like, I'm not saying they feel like they're used, but you want to make sure that you're connecting in a good professional way, that you're staying in touch, you're giving them the insight, and they're going to go to celebrate with you. They're going to want to say, that's great news. Awesome. Yeah, way to go. So, I mean, places like, Crossroads, they have, celebrations, things like that. The networking, the community that you work within, they will celebrate with you. How much fun is that? Really, have it happen. So don't forget too, social media profile is a must. When you're working with recruiters, there's a tag on you. You got to be out there and have a good profile out there. Recruiters are looking for you on LinkedIn. If you've got what they want and you have a good LinkedIn profile that again covers the scope with a good focus, good star stories on your LinkedIn profile, and recommendations from key people, coworkers, or supervisors you've had in the past, that will support and reinforce you as being a working person that they want to get in hold of. So very important to have a 100% completed LinkedIn profile with a good picture out there, not something that's photoshopped or cut off from a beach scene or a party. Some of those just really get me. Make sure it's not a picture from 1980. You know, you can tell by the yellow look to a photo if it's an old photo. Make sure that it's all about what you are. It's your brand. This is so important. Okay. Remember your focus when developing your profile. And recommendations are golden. As much as references are cool and have been long-standing in the past, recommendations from supervisors or former coworkers or current coworkers, whatever, that talk about your strengths, key strengths in the positions that you have and achievements, those are golden. And in fact, when I talk to recruiters in the IT field, as I work at the school in Minneapolis, I talk to them and they say they don't even look at references anymore. They just look at their LinkedIn profile and see what their portfolio has out there and things like that. Because they say, well, what reference would you give us? You'd give us a good reference. You're not going to give us somebody that they're not going to say good things about you. So they kind of think it's a waste of time sometimes to get a reference because it's just going through the motions. So be cautious of this. This LinkedIn thing is very important. I know a lot of people get hung up on say, I don't want to be online, things like that. Depending on what you're going for, you got to have this profile out there. Okay. These are things, I've done some research in this. Dan Zoo was a recruiter that from Business Insider that I connected with. He talks about things of what they look for in a recruiter who places hundreds of seniors and professionals. He has done that. There are a few crucial things that recruiters and hiring managers know that most job seekers don't. Career success is less about technical skill and more about a person's level of social etiquette and their ability to influence their peers and superiors. So how you present yourself, how you articulate your story, how you have real stories that are star in nature that you can bring across is important. Because you're selling yourself. We're doing marketing. This is what it's all about. Once you hit a certain amount of experience in your role, it's time to take your head out of the sand and start interviewing, even if it's just for your own education. So Dan talks about this, you know, like if you're in a position for a long period of time and you've been at a company for 5 years, 10 years, it might be time to kind of freshen up things. Don't get in a rut or routine because you can become a dinosaur very easily. These are things that he continues on as well. All basic skills met, likability trumps it all, okay? HR people actually are not that important in the hiring hierarchy. It's more the hiring managers themselves. We all kind of know that. The HR recruiters are important, but Sally and Johnny are just one cog in the wheel, and they're just doing what they're told to do. They're just screening based on some criteria that's given to them from the company, the hiring manager. You can negotiate and leverage other offers to great effect. Sometimes if you have other offers on the table, that'd be a great thing. You can negotiate those sometimes to have a better situation if you take the offer. So don't hesitate in those situations, is what he's saying. You should interview your interviewers harder than they do you. Here we go. Having good questions for the people that you're interviewing with. Business questions, not, I need a job, when can I start? It's showing energy, but also talking about the skills and the energy and the likability, the soft skills you have to make you the person of choice. And then ask questions, again, like I said earlier. Another question you might ask of the hiring manager or recruiter is saying, why do you enjoy working? What makes it enjoyable for you to be here? What are the things that keep you up at night? What, things like that, they engage the interviewer with you so that you learn why they are there. What makes them happy? What do they like about their mission, vision, values that align with those of the company? Very important. The interview, even if you don't interview even though you don't need to for practice. Do mock interviews. Keep on your game because you never know. As we heard earlier today, the experiences of getting a job and being, on a job, the average is about 3.5 years now. That was before COVID. I don't know what it is, the odds are right now, but things are churning constantly. So you've got to be on your game. You can't sit on your laurels after, get the job and you think, oh, it's cool, I'm gonna hang out here. You just don't know. So keep your network active in a good way. Keep practicing, keep learning technology, keep learning constantly, lifelong learning. When I do some work in high schools, the JA, Best Prep and Business Professionals of America, these kids are in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. I'm saying, you've got 50 years ahead of you. And they look at me like I'm on drugs or something. And I said, yeah, 50 years plus. You might be working even into your 70s. Who knows by that time? So I say, you've got to keep on your guard. You got to keep learning lifelong. And so as I work with kids in high schools, colleges these days, And even people, later in life, we've got to keep on top of what's going on. The trending is so important to stay engaged. Okay. So there you have it, the new secret sauce. So if there's any questions, I am open to questions. If there's anything happening. Oh, one more thing, okay, before I cut off here. This is a sailor's analogy. I'm a sailor, okay? I just wrapped my boat up this week. It's kind of the saddest day of the year. As I say, we call off the season. We had a great sailing summer on the St. Croix River. But this is something that somebody gave to me. The phrase, we cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust our sails. Be ready for the winds of change. What this means, like a sailor's analogy, is that when the wind changes, I have to change settings on the sails to make sure we get the best response from the wind for directions that we want to go. The same thing can be applied to our life, to our careers. Lifelong learning. Adjust with the changing trends. What's happened in the last 8 months? We've had to adjust by using this instead of being face-to-face. We've had to learn new technologies. We've had to learn Microsoft Teams. We've had to learn Google. We've had to learn Zoom. There's so many things that we've had to learn in technology to make this all work out, to connect in a different way. And by the way, with all these changes that we have to be cognizant of, networking actually has increased in responsiveness during the time of the COVID. I've talked to people that have said that, it used to be to take you weeks to get a networking response. Now, if you put a polite networking request out there, and even recruiters will network, you'll get an answer in 2 to 3 days, where it might be used to be 2 to 3 weeks. So I think this COVID thing has really opened the door to people feeling empathy. They're feeling isolated, and they want to help. They want to engage. So I think what we're seeing here from the COVID experience is what's bringing that all the way through from the standpoint. So now I'm done. Okay. Any questions? I'd love to hear them.
Terrific, Tom. Actually, we've got 3 people all addressing the same question, and
Okay.
It's around mailing thank you notes. During COVID here, a majority of recruiters are working remotely and not necessarily getting their mail from their corporate offices. And so mailing something right now may not be as effective as sending an email, but what are your thoughts?
I still think, email is good. I mean, email too. I totally get the email thing. I would do both. I would still send that card, even though they might come into the office once in a while and catch their mail. I know my wife goes in once a week, even though she's not supposed to be working there. She'll go in there and just scoop up stuff that she needs to get. So definitely electronically, totally got it. And send, and maybe just rephrase and keep it simple and short. But again, just like in the email, just like you do on the hard copy, I would do both, tell you the truth. That's fine.
Terrific. Someone asks, is it okay to work with more than one recruiter?
Good question. Good question. Especially, we're talking about the third parties, obviously, here. I should have touched on that earlier. I missed that. Really, what you want to do is work with a few core third-party recruiters that you feel most comfortable with. I kind of say no more than 3 or 4 third-party recruiters at a time. There's nothing worse, because they'll ask this question sometimes. They'll say, how many recruiters you're working with, or are you working with other recruiters? And if you say, well, I'm working with you go on for like 20 recruiters, and that person's listening to you, and you're like, this is going to be a tough nut for me to break with you if you've got all these recruiters having your resumes all over the Twin Cities, landing on desks or working all over the Twin Cities. How am I going to make money? This is what it's all about. How am I going to make money by trying to work with you when your resume is all over the place? Whoever gets the resume on the desk first, that makes the money, right? That's how they do it. If you have your resume in the hands of so many people and it's coming at companies, it shows that you're not managing your situation. It shows that it's chaos. Number 2, it forms gridlock. Recruiters may back away from you saying, like, you're a loose cannon. You're not organizing this. You're not doing your project management of your job search. You're spreading the word to all these recruiters, and they're throwing it all over town. And it can be crazy. For you to manage that, it can be crazy. It can form the gridlock, and that's not a good thing, because the money comes in. And if they can't make money off of you, or they know that your resume is in too many different places, it's not going to do them any good. They're not going to have a chance. So that's a long answer to a short question. But I would say, stick with 3, 4 maybe good recruiters that you trust. And if things happen that they don't, you might drop one off or they move away, then take on another one. But my point is keep it to a small group. That makes sense?
One question I want to put out there, and it hasn't been asked here directly, but talk, if you would, for a moment about who the recruiter works for. When people come to you and say, you know, my job search hasn't been going as great as I'd like, and so I want to engage a recruiter.
Right.
Talk about that relationship.
You bet. Yeah, early on, I kind of alluded to that. You know, the third-party recruiters, agency recruiters, I'll just throw out names. Everybody seems to know Robert Half, Randstad, the big ones, but there's a lot of other ones, obviously. They're working for the companies that they're building relationships with. That's who's paying the bills. So if they're trying to place somebody at Target Corporation, they are working the greasing the skids, they're working the relationship with Target to find the right candidate for that job. The candidate is important, obviously, but they're not going to be as they aren't going to be calling you every day like they might be calling Target Corporation, because they want to make sure that they are shining bright as a good contact for Target, let's say, or Thomson Reuters or Ecolab or whoever it might be. They want to make sure that they look sharp to them, that they are coming to them for needs that they have ongoing. The candidates have to be good. They're trying to make the best matches possible. But it's really, truly is, the money comes from the company to the agency, and then the agency recruiter gets a piece of that pie, the placement fee or the rate of pay. If it's a temp job, you get a piece of that. So that's really where it happens. It's sad but true. But you're, as a candidate, still developing that relationship as a human capital piece for them to place into jobs.
We have time for just one more here, and someone writes, I interviewed with a company 2 weeks ago. They said that they need some more time for internal due diligence and approvals before they can get back. How can we evaluate responses from a recruiter to ascertain whether they're stalling or really do need more time? I don't want to bug, but I want to stay aggressive about showing interest.
Right, that's a good point, and it can be that way. There can be a stall game going on. Sometimes they can even be having an outstanding offer and they're waiting on somebody else to answer the call, so to speak, before they shut down the whole search. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, and you know, you've got to do the best you can of staying energized with them. You know, again, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I have worked with so many people over the years. I wouldn't wait by the PC, the phone, whatever you want to call it these days. I wouldn't wait by that, waiting for that call to come, because it may be that you're number two. It may be that they have an internal situation they're working through with an internal candidate. All you can do is stay positive with that. I've had some of my clients who have gone through 7, 8 interviews, and then they did. I said, don't put your eggs all in one basket. They said, no, I got this job. I know I got it. This is gonna be great. And then they call me and they're just like almost crying on the phone, like, it didn't work out. I was number 2. And I said, oh, I close my eyes and I clench and I think, sorry to hear that, you know, because you lost a lot of time waiting for that one answer to come when you could have been keeping the momentum going with other opportunities and possibly getting other offers. So again, it's a long answer, but it does happen. And I think, you know, you just got to be patient, check in periodically. Maybe if you get a response that they're saying that, maybe if you can ask them, when would a good time to follow up on the next phase of this, so that they can at least say, well, by Monday we should know, or by Wednesday we should know. Hopefully they give you that straight shot, but you know, it's not always that easy. Sometimes they just blow you off and they won't even answer you, you know. So all I can do is persevere, pray and persevere. That's really what it is. I mean, there's no easy answer, and every situation is different. In my job search days, I had those Debbie Downer days where I was finished number 2 or 3, whatever. Or I was shocked when somebody called me, do you want the job? And it was like 6 months later. It's like, whoa, what happened? Well, sometimes what happens is that the person didn't accept the job, or they took the job and they weren't that good as they said they were. So my tactic, this is a little stretch, but my tactic is sometimes check back with that company after you've been turned down. Check back with them in 3 to 6 months. Just saying, you know, we had a great interview. I really enjoy your company. If anything were to come up again, I'd love to hear about it, you know. Because if you came in number 2, they liked you a lot. Okay, number 1. Number 2, they know you. They understand that you've got some great talents, and that other person just eked it out, so to speak. And if that person didn't cut the grade, didn't make it happen, I've seen people get in being number 2 after the fact. So it's another thing to be aware of.
Tom, thanks so much, and thank you also to Jane Schwartz today. Really appreciate each of you for watching. Our recording of this webinar, as I mentioned earlier, will be posted at the bottom of the seminars page of our website. And you'll receive an email tomorrow with links to many of the things we talked about. Also, be sure that you check out our website for more information and to sign up for the 8-week Zoom classes, networking every Thursday morning, one-to-one help, prayer support. And our next webinar will feature David Magee. David is a partner with one of the top executive search firms in the Twin Cities area, and he'll talk about impression management and networking for your job search. If you've never seen Dave before, David, you definitely want to tune in, and I assure you, you won't want to miss it. That'll be Thursday morning, November 5th, and you can find the details and pre-register on our seminars page. I hope this was worthwhile for you today. Best wishes on your search, and hope to have you back, and hope you don't need to come back and that because you landed a job real quick. But have a great day, great week, and see you again soon. Take care.